Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Okay, so we just recently talked about the New Mutants. We talked about the movie and the comic book characters. We talked about issue New Mutants 29 because of the Dazzler Gladiator connection. And I promised you that we would talk about the origin of Ileana, Magik, and so that's what we're going to do today. And Uncanny X-Men 160 is actually technically her origin story, the first appearance of her. Technically, if you want to be super technical, the first appearance of Ileana was Giant Size X-Men. You see Colossus. There's his little sister playing in the field, and there's a runaway tractor, and he jumps in front of the tractor, to save her, unaware of his powers, but he, rushes over and in that moment changes, and then he protects her and can't get out of the way and then destroys the tractor. But anyway, so that's technically the first appearance of Ileana. They do not name her at that time, though. It's just that's her first appearance, and she's of course just a little girl then. So like I said, this is actually the first time, like I said, kind of her origin story, but you'll see why I say kind of in that retrospect. Okay. So here we see someone watching the X-Men, and pay attention to this amulet, and there's Ileana right there. And then the voice is like, that's strange. I see, Storm attacking her comrades. Why would she do that? And then, he sees, oh, they're just sparring. It's not a real battle. And then he's basically, there's Ileana, and he calls to her. And he's like, Ileana. And she's like, And he's like, come to me, my child, just don't follow, don't tell anyone, just follow me, just, come to paradise. And so Ileana goes off, Kitty, and like I said, Ileana is just a little girl here. I don't know if you can see it, it's really hard to tell, but the teddy bear she's holding looks like Fonzie, the bear from the Muppets, because he's wearing a little hat and he has a tie. Anyway, that's what I think she's holding, is Fonzie, the bear from the Muppets. Anyway, so she's just a little girl, and Kitty follows her, and Kitty disappears in this light, just disappears. They don't know where she is. Okay. I'm about to tell you this little fact that you might find interesting, but so here's Storm after a hard workout, whatever. She is naked, using the elements to rinse herself off, dry off, whatever. Storm is the one X-Man out of all of them, women or men, but mostly women, that is naked a lot, literally. She appears naked in the comic books a lot. And I think the reason for that is because she's supposed to be have this, goddess persona, kind of otherworldly, in tune with nature, that sort of thing. And when you think natural, you think, bare, naked, whatever. Anyway, so she's naked a lot. I've seen it in multiple issues. I mean, of course, granted, because of the comic books authority, which we talked about in the Marvel Vault series and the DC Vault series, they can't technically show anything. So that's why you always see little things like this covering stuff. Because, technically, they're not allowed to show anything. See, it says approved by the Comics Code of Authority. That's a little stamp. So I just thought that was, I don't know, I thought that was an interesting factoid for you guys. Like I said, you might not find it interesting, but I just thought it was interesting that, she's the one. And so they all follow into the temple because they're like, well, where'd Kitty go? She went after Ileana, but I don't see Kitty or Ileana. And they all, disappear in this light, which you're like, okay, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And you find Kitty in this weird temple thing, and she runs into Nightcrawler, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. And this is a little awkward to read, but she gives him a hug, and she's like, Nightcrawler, oh, fuzzy elf, because that's what she calls him, because he's covered in this blue fur, and he pointed ears and stuff, looks like an elf. Anyway, she's like, I'm so glad to see you, and gives him a hug, and then she's like, oh, Kurt, how dare you touch me like that? Which, like I said, is a little awkward to read, and you're like, ooh, that's like a little cringy, like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And she goes on to say, who do you think you are? What kind of person do you think I am? And he says, you said you were glad to see me. I just, giving you the opportunity to prove it, which does not sound like Nightcrawler at all, because he's religious. He has a Christian background. He's a priest. He is very respectful. That's definitely not him. So she knows something's up. And she runs into Belasco, who is a demon sorcerer. And that's who's been following or watching Ileana. And so everyone goes off to try to find, everyone else. And Storm is attacked. And Colossus disappears in the light again. And you can see that Storm transforms, and it looks like she has organic skin like Colossus, and she has claws like Wolverine. And she uses them to cut out of whatever those are. I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so the Nightcrawler goes before Belasco, and he talks to Ileana, and Belasco is like, how dare you, that basically she's mine. You're not allowed to touch her or talk to her. Very possessive. And you can see Shadowcat is encased in this crystal, which prevents her phasing. And you see Sim, who you saw in New Mutants 29, when Ileana went to Limbo, and Belasco's like, hey, here, I have a job for you. And you see on the ground, there's Wolverine's skeleton. He picks the claw out of, off of his hand, and uses it to pick his teeth. So you're like, wow, what's going on? Nightcrawler's evil, Wolverine's dead, what's going on? And then you see him tear out Kitty's skeleton from her body. Her skeleton's still there, it's animated, but it's separated from her body. So basically she's alive, but if she ever leaves that crystal, she's dead, because it has magic. And you can see Nightcrawler sitting up here listening to all this. And Belasco's like, hey, Ileana, look at this. Look at this. It's a token of my love for you. Which, like I said, he was looking at that in the very beginning when we saw. Like I said, here's Storm again. And guess what? She's naked again. Like I said, she's the one who's, if anyone's naked in comic books, especially the X-Men, it's her. And she's not doing it, to be showy or seductive. It's just, like I said, they're trying to portray her as a goddess, nature, type. And so, she's naked. Anyway, so she wakes up and goes for a swim in this pool that just happens to be there to clear her head, get the stench of the tentacles. Tentacles, that's what I was going to say earlier. Wow, okay. Tentacles off of her. And the person has left her clothes and an amulet, a necklace of some kind that she puts on. And then we find Nightcrawler, who finds his evil self, and they battle. And then you see the evil Nightcrawler going back before Belasco and saying, hey, I got rid of the other Nightcrawler. Doesn't that warrant me any favor? Don't I, get some credit for that? Brownie points, whatever. And then you see Wolverine. And he comes across Colossus, who's dead, and his chest is caved in. And Wolverine's like, what the heck is going on? I don't understand. how is he dead? But at the same time, he looks much older. So what's going on? And then we see Wolverine and Sim tangling. And Sim is this huge, hulking demon. And once again, this light pops up. Wolverine disappears. And then we see Colossus saying, hey, if you want to fight someone, how about me? And Sim still has the Wolverine claw, throws it at Colossus, and it actually sticks in Colossus's shoulder through his armored form. Of course, Colossus is organic steel, and Wolverine's claws are adamantium, one of the strongest metals on Earth. So, they tangle. Oh, Colossus sees himself dead. That would be very disconcerting, to see yourself dead, your chest caved in. But, he's like, I need to help my friend. And then Wolverine comes back and it's like, hey, don't forget about me. So they battle Sim together, and together they push him through the light. And then they get pulled. This woman goes and says, hey, you need to help your friends. So she uses the light and transports them to where their friends are. Wow, I can't talk, I'm sorry. And it turns out Nightcrawler is not the evil Nightcrawler. He's the good Nightcrawler, pretending to be the evil Nightcrawler, to try to get the upper hand on Belasco. And then we see, Kitty is still in her prison, and we see Storm joining the fray. And she's like, I have to do something. And you see the woman unmask herself, basically, and it's Storm. An older version of Storm, but it's Storm. And apparently, what has happened is... Okay, well, I won't tell you that yet, because then they'll ruin it. But basically, she's been in here forever. For a long time. She's watched all of her friends die, and she stayed here to basically make sure nothing else happens. Like Belasco doesn't escape. So she has been studying the dark arts, arcane magic, and she's able to put Kitty back together. And then she tells Storm, the young Storm, the necklace that she wears, that'll give you the power to take you home. And Storm's like, you should join us. And she's like, no, I have to be here to cast the spell and to make sure that Belasco stays here, and so that he can't harm anyone. Okay, and so this is very important. This is a very important part. You see Colossus, they're in the light, they're going home. You see Colossus has Ileana. You see Belasco all of a sudden grab her. She drops her, like I said, I think that's Fonzie from the Muppets. Drops Fonzie. Kitty grabs her. So they both have her. They're both playing tug of war. And then all of a sudden Kitty's like, oh my gosh, I can't find her. I've lost her. And then she's like, wait, no, there she is. And she grabs her and pulls her out. And out pops this girl who has aged 7 years. So instead of being, she's now 13. And they're like, what the heck? And they say, Moira's examined her. She's healthy. She's just, 7 years passed. So in that brief second, that's why I said this is super important, in that brief second where they lost control of her, she was in limbo, because time passes differently there, for 7 years. And Storm, the older Storm, basically foresaw this. Like, it was either, Ileana gets trapped in limbo for 7 years, or the X-Men all die. So those were basically the two options, and you can see what happens when all the X-Men die and she was the only one that lives. Or you have the other option of where Ileana gets, it's just like a second, but it turns out to be 7 years. And you see Ileana, Green Colossus is like, oh my gosh, I miss you so much. I can't believe that, what happened, and just babbling, just on and on and on. And basically they have no idea, but she opens her hand and you see the amulet that he gave her. And you see now that has 3 stones. And see, there's like I said, I think that's Fonzie from the Muppets. Anyway, so, okay, what's important about this amulet? Do you see it? What's important about this amulet? There's 3 bloodstones right there already. So they're missing 2. So basically, Velasco was this man who made a deal with the basically demon lords, and he said, hey, if you give me infinite power, I will help you get a hold in this world. And so by using bloodstones, he was able to give them a portal to which they could come through to this world. And he was actually defeated by Khazar and Shaun of the She-Devil, and they banished him to Limbo, to Etherworld, and the locket was supposedly lost forever. But as you can see, the locket's there. And what he told Ileana is that when she becomes a woman and fully embraces her powers and grows in them, all 5 bloodstones will appear and she'll reclaim her destiny. So basically, okay, so here's where it gets complicated. So what happens is Ileana, when she was trapped in Limbo for 7 years during that split just second, what happened is that the older storm that's still trapped there took her side, because unfortunately Belasco in the very beginning was able to corrupt her soul. So, while she was in Limbo. So the older Storm took her and taught her the arcane arts, black arts, dark arts, because she was hoping that one day she would become strong enough, Ileana would, to defeat Belasco. And she was hoping that by her teaching Ileana, she would not give in to the darkness. Because she knew if Belasco taught her, then, it was over. I mean, it wouldn't matter. She would definitely be dark and a demon. So she taught her instead, and also Ileana also spent time learning with Belasco, and there's a mini series that's 4 issues that details Ileana's time, in Limbo in those 7 years, which is like the second. And she manifests her soul as a sword, and she has the armor that she wears, and that's also a part of her soul. That's why her sword's called the Soul Sword, and she can use all kinds of magic in Limbo, but she's very limited in the magic that she can use actually on Earth, like in the beginning. Like I said, it's pretty complicated. So she's a dark sorceress, and she's constantly fighting with herself to not give in to the darkness, because she's basically half demon at this point, having spent 7 years in hell, basically, in Limbo, surrounded by demons. So I think in the movie, that's what they're trying to represent with the smiling men, is that those were her demons, Ileana's demons. And like I said, her history is pretty complicated. It gets even more complicated from there, but I will just leave you with that for now, because I mean, at one point in the future, she reverts back to a little girl, and then she dies because of the legacy virus, and then she's resurrected, but she's not herself because she doesn't have her soul. And so, yeah, like I said, it's super complicated. She's a very complicated character, and she has a very complicated backstory. And so she regains her soul because because they find her soul sword. Anyway, like I said, it's really complicated, but she makes for a really good, interesting character. I really liked the time she spent with the New Mutants because it made her seem, you know, normal when she definitely was not normal. Plus, she's a really cool character. I mean, she out later in the future goes to study with Doctor Strange to hone her magical abilities more because, like I said in the beginning, she could barely do any magic actually on Earth. It was all in Limbo. And at some point, she became the ruler of Limbo. So anyway, super complicated, but that is where her origin takes place. That is the moment where it shifts from just a little girl to basically demon sorceress. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you join me for future videos. And until next time, bye.